drinking in the morning sun, blinking in the morning sun, shaking off the heavy one.
Hello, vinyl community. I am not dead. Believe it or not, I am back. I've been gone for 3 months, and you know, I'm not really going to apologize for it. I mean, that's probably this thing that people would expect me to say. I really did take an intentional break from making videos for a while. I think it was just burnout, you know, just a burnout factor. You know, I just didn't feel like I had anything really relevant to say anymore, or, you know, I don't know what it was really, that being honest, but I did want to come back because you know, I really enjoy the interaction. I love talking about music, and in particular vinyl records. But, you know, obviously I have a very large CD collection as well, a lot of box sets, and many artists that I'd like to do music collection videos on and talk about top 10 lists, and there's just a lot of things I still want to do. So hopefully this will be the springboard into something a little bit more permanent again. And I kind of wanted to take this in smaller doses, you know, coming back, you know, without doing something huge, some big epic production. Kind of keep it relatively quick and simple, and just pick a topic that, you know, is kind of on some people's mind right now, you know, maybe a few. So anyway, it is really good to be back, and it's good to see everybody again, and I hope that a few of you missed me. And hopefully, again, like I said, this will inspire me to come back more frequently and do videos. I know for a fact I want to do a year-end top 50 countdown like I always do. You know, I usually break that up into 2 videos, you know, 25 at a time, and that'll start in about, well, gosh, a month, maybe 5 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. So that's not really that far off. There's many collections videos that I have been requested from me for, like Tears for Fears, Scott Walker many times, Cocteau Twins many times, and I'm, you know, so overdue on that one. Somebody just requested, Sam, my friend Sam, requested The National, you know, and there's probably others I'm not thinking of because I don't have a list going, but, you know, there's a lot of videos that have been requested of me, and, you know, they're all here, you know, in my mental storage box, but I'll get to them all, you know, eventually. Just be patient with me, and I don't want to ramble on too long here. It's already going on 3 minutes, but anyway, it's really good to be back, and I hope everyone is doing well. So what I thought I'd do today is just talk about the upcoming Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction for 2017. Right now it is voting time. They listed the 19 different nominees for 2017, and I usually don't get too worked up about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Frankly, I mean, it has become a little bit of a joke, if I'm being dead honest with you, because you have artists in there that really had nothing to do with rock and roll. And while they're probably worthy as musicians, I don't know if they need to change the name of it, or maybe some of the criteria. You know, it's based on fan voting, and I'm not sure that's working out too well. But this year did intrigue me much more so than other years, because there's a couple names on that list, maybe 4, at least 4, maybe 5, that I really feel passionate about, that I really want them to get in to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And again, every time I say that, every time it comes out of my mouth, it's like it really doesn't feel right. It's not rock and roll anymore. You know, and I don't want to start controversy here, but there are acts that have been inducted in the past couple of years that you do really have to scratch your head. And I say a couple of years, I mean probably the last decade. You scratch your head and say, you know, I'm not sure this is really even a, you know, something I'd be excited about anymore if I was an artist. But I will say that, you know, some of the artists that I've been following this year that I really am hopeful that they'll get in have, you know, really put out a pretty strong social media campaign. They seem to be behind it 100%. They really want the nomination and appreciate the nomination. They want to come perform. And that, to me, says, okay, well, there's still value in this, you know. But when you see artists like Ringo Starr, you know, get not only nominated, but inducted as a solo artist. Now, I believe wholeheartedly that he belonged in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a Beatle. Obviously, he was part of the whole Beatle phenomenon, and the Beatles would not have been the same without Ringo. But as a solo artist, I really did have to kind of say, wait a minute now, there's a long, long laundry list of people that are more deserving of somebody that really had very little chart success, except for the first few albums, and didn't have a tremendous amount of hit singles. He's got one hits compilation that you might say, you know, only a handful of those are actually hits. You know, but he, you know, I guess from the merits of his name and the Beatles, you know, popularity, fans voted him in, you know. So again, I'm not trying to stir the pot. I'm just saying, you know, I think that these artists that I'm supporting this year are much more worthy of induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I'm just going to go through the list all from top to bottom. The first 14 really are in no order. I just picked the 14 that I didn't choose, and I'm going to pick the top 5 in the order. You can vote for 5 artists. If you go, I'm going to leave a link, and you can go and vote for the 5 artists that you want to see inducted into the Hall of Fame. And there is no order to it. You know, you don't. If you pick 1, it doesn't have more merit than if you pick 5, and you can't pick the same artist 5 times. So you can vote every day, and you can vote for 5 artists. And it's been fun. I've been doing it every single day for about a month now, and it stops on December 5th. So I'm going to count down the 5 artists that I've been voting for pretty much across the board every time I go on every day and vote. So with that said, there's 14 artists that are probably very worthy. Some of them I don't know. And others that I do know quite well, and maybe it just isn't their time just yet because these other artists are more important to me. Doesn't mean they're better, doesn't mean they've had more hits, doesn't mean they've had better success. It just means they're not as important to me. You know, that's the whole point of fan voting. You're voting as a fan, right? Okay, so the people I'm not voting for this year, and please, again, don't beat me up, because I'm sure there's fans of everybody I'm going to name out there of these people. Some of these I don't know. I'm just going to count them down in no particular order. Link Ray, never heard of that person. I think it's a person. LL Cool J, I am familiar with him, you know, and I'm sure he has his fans. Rufus featuring Shaka Khan, again, you know, I remember one hit, you know, I Feel For You, and I'm thinking, well, maybe in soul music, maybe in R&B, they were very popular, maybe they were, you know, big hit makers in R&B. The MC5s, familiar with, you know, not gonna make my top 5. The Meters, I'm not familiar with the Meters. I have no idea what they've ever done. Sister Rosetta Tharpe, I'm not personally familiar with, but I do see a lot of people getting behind this one. So I don't think she'll make it, but it sounds to me like she's maybe a gospel singer. I'm not 100% sure. Someone may have to tell me that. Probably blues or gospel. Nina Simone, who I am a fan of, and I like her music, and I love her lyrics, and I love the way she delivers them, but it didn't make my top 5. The Zombies, again, very familiar with the Zombies. You know, moderately successful in America, I think, and maybe more popular around the world than they were here. I don't know that for a fact, though. Rage Against the Machine, not my genre, not my thing. Wasn't a big fan of 90s grunge type rock, so that one isn't for me. Jay Giles Band, you know, I mean, they had 1 or 2 big albums, and the rest were kind of, they had a niche audience. Judas Priest, if you're a metal fan, that's probably high on your list. I'm not a metal fan, so, you know, that's not going to make my top 5. Bon Jovi, no, this is an artist that will get in. There's no doubt this artist will get in. Bon Jovi are hugely, immensely popular in the U.S. for sure, and around the world, really. But they have a huge following, particularly in the East Coast of the United States, Philly, and they will get in. So they don't need my vote, but they didn't make my top 5. These other 2 artists maybe won't get in, and they would probably be ones that I would be on the fence with. Do I vote for them, or do I vote for somebody else? Second runner-up, I suppose you could say, is Dire Straits. Very worthy of getting in, and if they don't make it this year, I'm sure in the future they will make it, because they had a brief career, I guess you could say, maybe 20 years, but they were very impactful and still have some very memorable albums that are considered classics. And then finally, a band that will no doubt get in someday. I just don't think it's their time just yet, personally, although I'm a big fan of them, especially some of their earlier albums. Radiohead was my first runner-up, I suppose you could say, from the top 5. So there you have it. Those are the 14 artists that I'm not voting for. But who I am voting for is probably more important, I guess. And I've pulled out just a few things to show you, so I'm just not coming here to talk to you. And I'm just going to go top to bottom. This would be in order of importance for me, if they make it or not. And the first artist on my list is Kate Bush, in 5th place. And I picked Kate Bush, and I'm showing this box set. I took the guts out so I can show you a few things as I talk. This is the most recent release that she did from a concert, I believe in 2015, in the UK, called Before the Dawn. And it really is a wonderful concert comeback for Kate Bush. I picked her over a few other artists because I think that she has more universal, worldwide acclaim. I mean, I listen to her albums and I do get kind of swept away. And you know, I think that she's one of those artists that easily get overlooked, and especially in America. You know, I think she's, you know, hugely popular in the UK and around the world, but in America she only really had 1 or 2 big hits, and I really would like more spotlight in America put on Kate Bush. That album is broken up into 3 different acts. Her stage show it looked incredible. I mean, if I was a millionaire, I would have gone to and flown to the UK and tried to go to this concert. This is a 4 LP box set of those 3 acts that she put on there. And I don't think she only did it for 2 shows, maybe 3. I'm not 100% sure, but it was very brief. It wasn't a tour by any means. It was just a one-off kind of stage production. Anyway, Kate Bush, you know, I think I picked her really primarily because I think she's deserving. She's got some great albums, and 2, just for, you know, more notoriety in America, I think it would be nice for me to see her get in. Maybe not much more, but a little bit more so than Radiohead, who has a huge, massive fan base around the world, and, you know, surely doesn't need more notoriety. Oh, I did pull this out real quick too. This is my favorite Kate Bush album. This is Ariel, and I really would probably say this is one of my biggest grail items that I would love to have in my collection, and I'm just hoping and praying that there will be a reissue on this someday, because the original copies of this on vinyl go for huge amounts of money, upwards of $300 to $400 depending on condition, and that's just never going to happen for me. So Ariel is my favorite Kate Bush album, if anybody's ever wondering. Okay, in 4th place, again, I could change 6, you know, through 4 pretty easily, interchangeable really, but I picked this artist because I guess I've liked them longer, and this is an act that was really primarily popular, I think, in America. You know, that's an American band, I think, for the most part, and they definitely have their niche late 70s, early 80s, huge popularity, and they hung around for a long time, and still going today, although they're kind of a little bit of a fragment of what they used to be. And that is the Cars. The Cars have, a lot of albums, really. This is their debut album, and really probably their most known album still, except maybe their 4th album. And this is just full of hits. I mean, you know, Good Times Roll, Best Friend's Girl, Just What I Needed. There's another one here, Bye Bye Love, Moving in Stereo. So, I mean, those were all big hits in America. So they just came out of the gate full guns blazing and were very impactful from the moment people heard of the Cars. And I do think they had a very unique sound, and still do. This is Candio, the follow-up. These are all just original copies, but, you know, these are not hard to find. These were a dime a dozen at one time, and they're probably found in dollar bins in a lot of cases. 3rd album was called Shake It Up, and this one maybe wasn't quite up to par with their first 2, but still a good album. The title track was a big hit. I'm Not the One was a single. Victim of Love, I think, was a single, and maybe that's it. This one was a little bit of a fall off, maybe, other than they had, you know, that big title track hit. Then they came back really, really strong with a 4th album called Heartbeat City, and this may be their second most commercially successful album apart from the debut. This was a big hit. This had a lot of singles on it. Let's see, I'll pull it out really quick. Oh wow, that's really tight. I have to pick a different blade sleeve for that. Let's see here. We've got, oh come on now, not cooperating at all. Well, I gotta look on the record because it's not on the gatefold. Let's pull it out and take a look. Let's see, we've got You Might Think, of course. Why Can't I Have You? That was a single. Heartbeat City, I don't think was a single, but I love that track. Hello Again, that was a big single, big video. This was the height of MTV. Magic and Drive. So, you know, most anybody who knows the Cars knows those singles. I love that label too. They, you know, this is a really good album, very strong album, and I remember having this on cassette back in the day and just playing the crap out of it. It was very popular for a long time, and still is. You know, I still, every time I put this on, I still really enjoy it. It really does hold up. They stand up to test of time. Then they had a big fall off. Their last couple albums didn't do particularly well. Panorama, I don't remember any songs doing well on this album. Maybe Touch and Go, maybe slight success with that one. But they did, you know, that Heartbeat City was their last big hurrah, really, you could say. And then I think their final album, they made a comeback a few years ago. They released an album. I liked the lead single. I heard the album. I didn't like it much, so I never did buy it. And I forget the name of it too. But their last album in their prime, in their heyday, was Door to Door, and this is an album I think actually didn't do well at all. I'm really not sure if they had any success on this album. Probably not, because they kind of called it quits for 20 years after that, and maybe Greatest Hits is about all you'd need from the Cars. So that's my number 4. Number 3, you know, I've got a whole collections video on this band, so it's no secret. Honestly, the last 3, it's no secret that I'm a big fan of any of these, and I just picked out 4 things to show you. I'm voting every time for Depeche Mode. I'm a huge fan of Depeche Mode, and I think they're worthy because, not that they're rock and roll, by no means, but, you know, well, I'm a big fan, so I'm biased, what can I say, but I think that they have a variety. Their albums are incredible, really. Most of them really hold up very, very well. This is their most recent album, Spirit, which is quite good, and you'll probably see this on my top 50 list here in a month or so. And I really got to applaud Depeche Mode, because one of the things that I find most amazing about them is their massive popularity everywhere. They're popular here, they're popular in Europe, they're popular in Australia, they're popular in the UK, they're popular North America, South, you know, they have a following everywhere, and they can still fill stadiums around the world after 35, 40 years in the business, and that's almost unheard of. I just pulled out the 3 most recent remix albums. These are all 2 LP remix albums, and Depeche Mode have been known for a long time as the remix kings. You know, every single that they've ever put out has 12-inch singles, either on vinyl or CD, and you know, they just faithfully stick to that formula. And this is going backward. This is also 7 or 8 different mixes spread out over 2 LPs. And then their lead single for the album, which was fantastic, Where's the Revolution. Really interesting remixes on this one. This is the one I tend to play the most because I really like that song, and some of the mixes are just really, really good, and that'll test your drywall on that. And I'm not much on remixes, but when it comes to Depeche Mode, I am, because they always seem to do it really well. I mean, I'm not saying I'm liking everything that they do, but they give you 7 or 8 different options on every single that they've ever put out, and it's like, well, you're gonna like some and you're gonna love others, and some of them, you know, throwaways, but for the most part I really, really like them. Okay, 2 and 1 you could easily flip-flop, but I'm gonna stick with my number 1 because I'll tell you in a minute. But my number 2 I'm just as passionate about, really, and I also have a collections video on this artist, and that is Eurythmics. Dave Stewart and Annie Lennox, so deserving in my opinion. I'm just a huge fan of them. I've been since day one, even before, you know, they really hit it big. That was when I found them, but they were good even when they were in the Tourists as you know, kind of the leaders of that band. And then they put out an album I'll show you here in a second that didn't do anything before Sweet Dreams. That's amazing, that should have done something. And they deserve it. They really, really deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This is a music on vinyl repress, I probably would think, of their greatest hits. But, you know, music on vinyl does everything so well. I go to that one a lot because it sounds good. And I've shown you this before, but this is their CD box set that has all of their studio albums inside, plus a bonus disc of a lot of stuff that wasn't on their albums. And I'm just going to go through them really quick. I didn't want to make this video super long, but it's going to be long anyway. This is the album I was just talking about, In the Garden. This came out before Sweet Dreams Are Made of This, and you may not be familiar with it if you're only a casual fan of Eurythmics, but this is a great album. I have it on vinyl as well. Not hard to find. And it just didn't sell well. And, you know, they didn't give up, but they did change their sound a bit. And right when the synth pop, new wave, all that was happening in the early 80s, they came out with their, you know, as some would say, their masterpiece, most beloved album, and certainly most well-known single, Sweet Dreams Are Made of This. And from there, they released an album called Touch, which is maybe my personal favorite, maybe, but I do love them all. The first three, though, you know, are pretty good. And then from there, I think I'm going in order here, hopefully. I'm not 100% sure. I believe this one was next, called Savage. Not as big on this one personally. I know my Facebook buddy Christian Girard, he loves this album. I think it's his personal favorite Eurythmics album, but it's one of my least favorites personally. But it has some pretty cool singles on it too, so it was just a departure from the sound of Eurythmics. And then they came back pretty strong commercially with this album called Revenge. This is when I saw them in concert. The one and only time was on this tour, and it was great because this is the one that was really most rock and roll. And when you're talking about rock and roll, this is an album that they did kind of go rock and roll on, and you can kind of tell from their look even, you know, a lot of black leather, and Dave was, you know, instead of a lot of synthesizer, it was a lot of guitar driven stuff. And this was a great period for Eurythmics, and I think it was a huge success, especially in the UK. Then they came out with Be Yourself Tonight. Again, apologize if this is just slightly out of order, but I don't think so. Would I Lie to You? The Sisters Are Doing It for Themselves. Just another really good album. And they just always kind of reinventing themselves and just doing something amazing and different. Their last album before they took a little bit of a hiatus was We Two Are One. This is probably my least favorite, if I'm being honest. More so than the one I showed you before. Although I say least favorite, it's still a good album. This was their, I think, last album with Arista Records. And this one just didn't resonate as much with me. And then they came back pretty damn strong with an album about a decade later, when they kind of took a hiatus. They've never really broken up. Dave and Annie are still friends. They still get together. They still do things occasionally together. And I think when I said before, this is an artist that's really putting a lot of effort behind their nomination, and have said publicly, we would love to come play for you. We would love to be able to get together again and you know, just have fun. And every time they do, I'm sure it would be magical, because Annie Lennox to this day is one of the most electrifying performers I've ever seen. And this album is called Peace, and this was a big comeback for them. So they did a whole world tour on that, and God knows why I didn't go, but maybe it was just not convenient for me. I don't know. But I would love them to do another album. I'd love them to get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and of course, with the new album, do a whole tour as well. So Eurythmics, my second choice, and easily could be my number one, probably my favorite artist on the list. But I reserve my number one pick for a band that probably deserves it more than any other artist, because I couldn't believe, you know, I guess I had known in the back of my mind that they're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but then you kind of think this is their first time that they've ever been nominated. They've been around for 50 years or more, probably more like 52 or 53 years. And you think, how can that be? Because really, they've been pretty remarkable. And again, I'm a fan, so I'm a little bit biased, but I pick this as my number one. I will vote for them every single time. They deserve it. And if you're not voting for this band, you're clearly missing something. And maybe you just don't like that genre of music. I don't know. But if anybody deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it is the Moody Blues. The Moody Blues are not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They will make it this year. They're currently in second place behind Bon Jovi. And because when you vote, you get a running tally of who's in what position. And the Moody Blues look pretty much like clear cut, no doubt they're going to get in. But they get my vote every single time I vote for the five, and they will continue to do so because they deserve it. This is Days of Future Past, obviously. My good friend Ross Goodall just did a complete review of this just yesterday, and it's a fantastic job. Ross did a really good job on this review, so head over to his channel. I'll leave a link in the description and check out a full review of Days of Future Past. Their first 7 albums, they just really could do no wrong. This is In Search of the Lost Chord, And this is my personal favorite of their early days of their output. Search of the Lost Chord is a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. And I'm showing you the CDs because these sound so good. They're so much better than the vinyl records, and I have a really, really nice collection of the Mobile Fidelity 90s original original master recordings of these. This is On the Threshold of a Dream, and some are nicer than others. Like this one is just absolutely mint with the J card in the whole bit. This one is missing the J card, but another phenomenal album. The next one is To Our Children's Children. This one does have the J card, and it's just an absolute mint condition. I'm so lucky to have these. Then we've got Every Good Boy Deserves Favor, missing the J card, but otherwise flawless. So happy to have it. And then you get A Question of Balance, and another really good album. So as I said, you know, their first 7 albums, they could just do no wrong. And then you got The Seventh Sojourn, which is probably the hardest to find of these original 90s master recordings. And I'm so lucky that I got one with a J card, and you know, it's just in pristine condition, and just very, very fortunate. And then my personal favorite album of theirs, other than maybe In Search of the Lost Chord, you've heard me say this a few times, one of my favorite albums of the whole decade of the 80s, Long Distance Voyager. Love that album, and that's all they have on Mobile Fidelity, but I pulled these out just to finish out their most known albums. That was Octave after that. This is Japanese Shim CD, and then you've got the Present, and this is also a very good album. So anyway, that's my #1 choice. They fully deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and you see, this is one of the reasons I take breaks. This is one of the reasons I really needed a break, because I can't make short videos. I tend to ramble a lot, and I only showed you a very little bit of stuff, and I talked for 26 minutes. So I apologize for the length, and hopefully these are still enjoyable for you. And really, I encourage everybody who's watching this to click the link, go vote for your favorites. Surely there's 5 artists on here you can get behind and support. I'm not saying I'm a huge fan of the whole idea of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, especially lately in the past decade or so, but I still feel like there's some merit to it. I still feel like it's something viable, because it gets artists together that haven't been together in a long time. For example, ELO came out last year, and Roy Wood was with them. Didn't perform with them, but it was the first time they'd been seen together, Jeff and Roy, for many, many years. Steve Miller Band, you know, there's a long list of bands that get together and kind of bury the hatchet. And a lot of artists that have broken up, or like Eurythmics, have just kind of retired, and this kind of gets them back into public spotlight. So anyway, those are my 5. There's 14 others. I hope you enjoyed the video. It is good to be back, and tell me what your favorites are down below in the comments, and who you're voting for. I'd be curious to know. And I'll be back very soon with more collections videos, and of course my top 50 of 2017 is coming. Putting a lot of work into that, and I've really thought it through this year, so that'll be something to look forward to, I'm sure. And I'm gonna stop. I could talk and talk and talk. You can tell I've been gone a while. I got a lot to say. So that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Good to see you all. Take care of yourselves, and bye for now.